I'll be speedrunning through every NFL team schedule and giving you my quick predictions on how their season will end. Obviously, all these predictions are subject to change, injuries happen, predictions change every week, but here's my first initial speedrun thought on how I think each NFL team season will script out. Every year, I want to go back to my prediction video for the season and point mark down how I do. If I get a team's record bang on, I get 3 points. If I get it off by 1, I get 1 point. And if nor occur, then I get 0 points. So let's see how I do. And please send me your predictions to try to beat me. First up is the Arizona Cardinals, the worst team in the NFC West. It doesn't look good for them, and even one of their offensive tackles is saying that Kyler Murray needs to grow up. Kyler Murray isn't even expected to start week 1. In fact, it's stated that it's a long shot, so let's get it rolling. Week 1 in Washington, loss. Week 2, season opener versus the Giants, another loss. They're just better coached than you. Week 3 versus the Cowboys, another loss. Week 4 versus the 49ers in San Francisco, another loss. They swept you last year and are just insanely better. Week 5 versus Bengals, loss. Week 6 versus the Rams in LA. We're not quite sure when Kyler's going to return, but week 6 is pretty favorable, and the Rams have declined, so I'm going to give you a divisional win here. Week 7 versus Seahawks, loss. They won't win back-to-back games. Week 8 versus Ravens, loss. Week 9, loss. Week 10 versus Falcons. I'll give the win to Kyler. Will most probably be back by this time and is definitely capable of winning the quarterback battle, so I'll give you a win here. Week 11 in Houston, another loss. I feel like Houston can pull some good victories this year, and this is one of them. Week 12 versus the Rams, another loss. You won't sweep the Rams. Week 13 versus Steelers, another loss from home. They're just better coached than you. Week 15, 17, you're losing all 3 games straight. And week 18, another divisional loss, meaning I have the Cardinals going 2-15 on the year. Again, it's so hard to predict because we're not thinking about injuries during the season, but based off of the criteria we have, no Kyler for a vast majority of the season, no DeAndre Hopkins, new coach, below average defense. It's going to be not fun of a season for Arizona fans. Second up is the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Falcons have improved a lot. They signed Jesse Bates, already had a great running game prior. Now they drafted Bijan. AJ Terrell is a dog. Trey Flowers was a solid pickup. Jeff Okudah was a solid pickup. Calais Campbell, Scotty Miller, Mac Hollins, Jonnu Smith. I have pretty good hopes for this Falcons team. They've upgraded their team a lot. Obviously, the quarterback play will be up in the air, but most definitely are capable of winning this NFC South. Week 1 versus Panthers, I do think you're winning this game in a tight divisional battle. Could go either way, but Jesse Bates will be picking off Bryce Young in this game. Week 2, you're beating Jordan Love and the Packers. You're not going to go 3 straight wins, though, as the Lions have a very good team and will score more points than you, in week 3. Week 4 versus the Jags. I think the Jags will be very good this year, and although it'll be competitive, you'll lose away in Jacksonville. Week 5 versus Texans, you'll win. Week 6 against Commanders, Heineke has that dog in him. I can't believe I just said that. And even though if he's not a starter, he'll have a snap or two and just bring home the victory. I just have that feeling Commanders are going to beat you. Week 7 versus the Bucks. The Bucks are going to be poor this year. You're going to win. Now, don't get too ahead of yourselves because I have you going through a midseason slump, losing 3 straight. But coming off the bye week, you'll be prepared and beat the Saints. Aaron Rodgers will get the best of you following week, but again, you'll bounce back to sweep the Bucks. You'll sweep the Panthers as well, as you'll be pushing for the division. Beat the messy Indianapolis Colts, lose to a Fields fiery Bears team, and also lose in Week 18 to split the season series with the Saints. So overall, I have the Falcons going 9-8. 2 wins more than last season. I consider this to be a great season for the Falcons. 9-8 could possibly win this division. This team is a very underrated team, but again, a big question mark at quarterback. I can't see Heineke or Ritter taking this team to 10+ wins, but 9-8 on the year is very doable. Side note, excuse if I sound sick, it's because I am, but I want this video to go out, so we're just going to talk and get through the pain. Baltimore Ravens have definitely upgraded their wide receiver signing in OBJ, along with Bateman on the come up and drafting Zay Flowers, who is looking like a monster. I mean, that guy's route running is incredible. Lamar is back and healthy. J.K. Dobbins is back and healthy. I have very high hopes for this team. They get an easy start as they'll blow past the Texans in week 1. Week 2 in Cincy, they'll lose in a tight game, but will bounce back the next week against the Colts. From week 4 to week 7, they have a 3-game road trip in which they won't come back home with all 3 wins, losing to the Browns in a divisional battle, but beating the Steelers and the Titans. They'll beat the Lions in a close matchup by Detroit's defense just not being good enough to sustain Lamar and the Ravens. Cardinals is an easy win. Lamar will roll through Geno and then split the series with the Browns and Bengals. They'll lose to the Chargers in LA on the road, but coming off the bye, they'll beat the other team in LA, the LA Rams. The next week, they'll play the Jags in Jacksonville, which is Lamar's hometown, and they'll beat the Jags on prime time. However, they won't win back-to-back primetime games and lose to the 49ers in San Francisco. Week 17, they play the Dolphins, which will be a very tough game as both teams will be pushing playoffs or potentially pushing the division. But I have Miami winning this one and the Ravens ending off the season sweeping the Steelers. On the year, I have the Ravens going 12-5, a record that will put them in the playoffs where they belong. Next up is the Buffalo Bills, and a lot of you may be shocked by my predictions here, but in the AFC East, I see 3 teams trending up and 1 team trending down. The team trending down is the Buffalo Bills. There was a ruckus with Stephon Diggs. They haven't been able to get over the hump. They lost Tremaine Edmunds. Personally, I think it will be an on and off season for the Bills, starting off with a primetime Week 1 loss to Rodgers and the Jets, which will really set the tone for the season. They'll bounce back the next 2 weeks with wins, however, to another divisional rival, the Miami Dolphins. They'll lose. They split the series with them last year, and I'm expecting 4 weeks in that the Bills will be 2-2 with 2 divisional losses, activating a slight panic mode. Jacksonville rolls up next game, but the game is in London, and everyone knows that Jacksonville is a big London team. A lot of Jags fans will be up in England, so this is essentially an away game for Buffalo here, and Trevor Lawrence will put the Bills under 500 after 5 weeks. They won't be under 500 for long, though, as the next 3 weeks, they'll secure 3 wins, resurrecting panic mode, and find themselves 5-3. However, as we saw last year, Joe Burrow will get the best of Josh Allen again on prime time, but they'll come back at home and beat the Broncos on prime time. They'll split the series with the Jets, but lose to the Eagles and Philly, find themselves 7-5 at the bye week. Not the best position for the Bills to be in, as they're usually leading the division, but coming off the bye week, the Bills will beat the Chiefs in a miraculous comeback win in a game that no one thought Josh Allen would get the win here. They'll beat the Cowboys at home, and all of a sudden, momentum is starting to roll for the Bills until they lose to Herbert and the Chargers in a high-scoring game in LA. Bill Belichick will break the hearts of Buffalo fans, making them fall to 9-7 before a statement win in Miami to end the season, which means I have the Bills going 10-7 on the year. Not their best, but a record that may cause them to miss the playoffs. We shall see. Next up is the Panthers. New quarterback look over here. Bryce Young era, a team that is on the come up, but still a lot of pieces away. However, they do have a very easy division, so let's get rolling. Week 1 versus divisional rivals Atlanta. Having Bryce Young going up against a secondary that includes Jesse Bates and AJ Terrell in his first ever NFL regular season start is not a good recipe, so the Panthers will lose this game. Week 2 against the Saints, they'll win at home, sparking Bryce Young talk around the league, but losing to Seattle right after. The next 3 weeks, they'll lose, putting them at 1-5 at the bye week, but coming off the bye, Bryce Young will get the best of CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson. However, Justin Fields will put him in his place in Week 10. The Cowboys and Titans will get the best of the Panthers, but Tampa won't be able to put enough points up on Carolina, and they'll bounce back with a win in Florida. The Saints will split the division with you, and Atlanta will sweep you as they'll be pushing the division, but you'll get the best of Jordan Love and the Packers in Week 16. The final 2 games, I have you losing the Jags, but beating the hot mess Tampa Bay Bucks in the final game of the season, which means I have the Panthers going 6-11 on the year, which I would consider to be a very solid season for Bryce Young and the Panthers. Jumping from young QB to young QB, Justin Fields and the Bears is up next, a team that I have very high expectations for and I think will be the most improved team in the NFL. They added DJ Moore, Cole Kmet is on the rise, Tremaine Edmunds signed, D'Onta Foreman will be a third down and red zone back. I'm telling you, the Bears had great performance last year but cannot finish games. The Bears will be good. Starting off first 2 weeks, they have very light first 2 games. Jordan Love and Baker Mayfield, I mean, that's just both going to result in wins. The Chiefs will humble them in Week 3, but Justin Fields will put on a prime Russell Wilson performance versus Russell Wilson and the Broncos to put the Bears at 3-1. He'll show Sam Howell up on prime time, but lose 1 p.m. Kirk in Week 6. The Raiders defense won't be able to handle Justin's running, but they'll lose the following week on the road to Herbert and the Chargers. The Saints will get a squeaky win, slumping the momentum, but Fields will be running wild on prime time against the Panthers and a bounce-back win. I have the Bears splitting the series against the Lions and Vikings, as Kirk will not show up in this primetime game. Deshaun Watson, the Browns will stump the Bears in Cleveland Week 15, but you'll end the season with 3 straight wins, putting yourselves in a playoff spot at 11-6, a massive turnaround for the Chicago Bears. Next up is Joey B and the Bengals, a team that we all expect to do well, so let's just get it rolling. Joe Burrow will be on smoke this year after back-to-back heartbreaking playoff losses. I expect him to come out guns blazing, starting off 6-0 heading into their bye week. That 49ers defense will stump them though in San Francisco, handing them their first loss of the season. They'll bounce back in a primetime win versus Bills and a dominating victory over the Texans before losing on primetime to Lamar and the Ravens, splitting the series with Baltimore. They'll win the next 4 games before losing to the Steelers in a weird Week 16 loss. However, they'll bounce back with another late regular season win versus the Chiefs and end off the year in a sound win versus the Browns. Meaning on the year, I have the Bengals going 14-3. Yes, 14-3. Because I think Joe Burrow is going to win MVP, throwing over 5,000 yards, winning the AFC North as well. Speaking of the AFC North, next up is the Cleveland Browns, another team I have high hopes for. However, they do have a very, very tough division. I believe Deshaun will be better. Elijah Moore will step up. Defense is solid. A team that has potential. The first 4 games before the bye week, I have you going 3-1. And coming off the bye, I have you shocking the 49ers in a win in Week 6. If Deshaun Watson moves his legs with the likes of Nick Chubb, it will cause the 49ers havoc coming off the bye. You'll beat the hot mess Colts, finding yourselves at 5-1 before losing to Seattle's defense in Week 8. You'll beat the Cardinals with ease, but split the series with the Ravens and the Steelers. The Broncos will hand you your third straight loss, putting yourselves into panic mode, but you'll come back and beat the LA Rams. Trevor Lawrence and the Jags will stump you, but you'll win the next 2 games before losing to Aaron Rodgers on prime time football. Finally, to end the season, you'll lose to steamrolling Bengals, meaning to finish off the year, I have the Browns going 9-8, starting off hot but ending cold. Will they sneak into the wild card position? We'll see. Moving on to the Dallas Cowboys, the most overrated team in the NFL, but I must admit, I am jealous of that Brandon Cooks signing. The first 4 games of the season, I have you starting 2-2, losing to both AFC East teams. The 49ers have absolutely been owning you in the games in San Francisco, so the 49ers will be putting you below 500. However, in a must-win game before the bye week, you'll beat the Chargers to gain momentum going into the bye, and beat the Rams following the bye week. The Eagles will stump you in Philly, but you'll be sweeping the Giants this year. The next 3 games you'll win, but again, Philly will be your kryptonite this season and will be sweeping you this season. Josh Allen, the Bills will pack you, as well as the Dolphins with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle will be cooking your secondary. That Lions defense won't be able to stop you guys, and you'll finish off the year sweeping the Commanders, which means on the year, I have the Cowboys going 10-7. Dak's getting older and does not prove himself in big-time moments. You'll still make the playoffs, but I just don't think Dak's that guy. Moving on to the Denver Broncos, a team that I had high hopes for last season. Russell Wilson was one of the worst quarterbacks in the league last year. However, reports are stating that Sean Payton is reviving this team, and you know what? I'm buying in on it. With that defense and with that potential the offense has, I believe it. So, the first 3 weeks of the season, you'll win going 3-0. And the talk around town is how Sean Payton is reviving Denver. However, Justin Fields will be handing you your first loss of the season and a worldly performance by him in Chicago. The Jets will also stump you, as Russell Wilson will struggle to put up points up against that Jets defense in a low-scoring Jets win. Mahomes will take care of you on prime time, and all of a sudden, you're 3-3 just like that. But I have you winning the next 2 games, easily taking care of the Packers, and surprisingly, beating Mahomes and the Chiefs in Denver, as you would have just played them 2 weeks ago, constructed a well-recent thought game plan, and have yourselves heading into the bye week at 5-3. Josh Allen, the Bills will stump you on prime time, but Russell Wilson will have a primetime game of his own in Week 11 versus Kirk and the Vikings in a bounce-back win. Coming off that big primetime win, you'll gain momentum beating the Browns, beating the Texans, and beating the Chargers in LA. You'll beat the Lions in Week 15 as well, as their defense won't be able to stop you as many times as you'll be able to stop them, but you'll lose the next 2 weeks in a Bill Belichick masterclass versus Sean Payton and a series split versus the Chargers. Finally, you'll end the season sweeping the Raiders, which means I have the Broncos going 11-6. That mid-late stretch from Week 11 to Week 15 will carry their season, and again, I have high hopes with what Sean Payton can do for this team. Moving back to the NFC, the Detroit Lions are up, a team that's young, a team that's fun, and a team that a lot of people have high hopes on. However, they do have 2 completely new running backs at the helm and a defense with a lot of question marks. Regardless, let's get into it. Week 1, the Chiefs will be steamrolling past you in a high-scoring game. In Week 2, Seattle will again beat you in a very tight, high-scoring game. However, finally, you'll score more points than the other team in the next 4 weeks, beating the Falcons, beating the Packers, beating the Panthers, and beating the Bucs, turning around the start of the season to 4-2. Lamar will be running all over you in Week 7, but you'll come back with a primetime win against the Raiders. Coming off the bye, the Chargers will show you business, but you'll bounce back with a home win in Chicago. But the season will continue to be up and down, as the Packers will be getting a surprising Thanksgiving win. You'll beat the Saints before losing back-to-back weeks, splitting the series with the Bears, and losing to Sean Payton and the Broncos. 1 p.m. Kirk will stump you, and the Cowboys will cause the city of Detroit depression late in the season during Week 17. Finally, you'll beat the Vikings in the last game of the season, trying to salvage a playoff position, but with a record of 8-9, which may be enough for the NFC wildcard position, we shall see. A lot of people have high expectations for Detroit, but I'm expecting a late season slump for the boys in blue. Next up is Green Bay, a new era for them, a Jordan Love era. They've lost their veteran wide receivers in Randall Cobb, Allen Lazard, lost the best quarterback their franchise will ever see. Defense is mediocre. This season will not be the best for Packers fans. Straight up, first 7 weeks of the season, I have you starting 0-7. Now, hear me out. Justin Fields will hand you a loss in Week 1. The Falcons' defense will cause Jordan Love issues. Same with the Saints. The Lions will outscore you. Devontae will be cooking you on prime time. You'll lose in Denver. I mean, this is just not a good start at all for the Packers, but I have you beating the Vikings surprisingly in Week 8. Matthew Stafford will outclass you in Week 9, and Kenny Pickett will get the job done in Pittsburgh. Herbert will stroll past you, but I have you upsetting the Lions on Thanksgiving Day. The Chiefs and Giants will both beat you on prime time, but at 1 p.m. you'll beat Trask or Baker, whoever's starting for that Tampa team, and beat the Bucs home at Lambeau. Finally, the last 3 games of the season you'll lose. Ending the year 3-14, this will be a start of a horrible era in Green Bay. Another young team with a young QB, CJ Stroud and the Texans. They drafted Will Anderson as well. He's looking fire in preseason. However, they still have little to no pieces on offense and plenty of question marks on their team. Their first 6 games of the year, you'll be starting 1-5, having beaten the Colts at home. Bryce Young will get the best of you, as well as the Bucs, as their weapons on offense are simply just better than yours. The Bengals will roll past you, but you'll beat the Cardinals, but lose the next 5 weeks. You'll get swept by the Titans, sweep the Colts this year in the last game of the season, and yeah, 3-14, basically the same as last year. Sticking to that AFC South, the Colts are up next, a hot mess of a team. Jonathan Taylor wants out. Anthony Richardson is now declared the starter, meaning that this is the Colts' 6th season in a row starting a new quarterback in week 1. But let's get into it. The first 3 games of the season, you'll be losing. The JT situation still hasn't been compromised, but week 4 against the Rams, Anthony Richardson will showcase his running ability against that sorry Rams defense, putting yourselves at 1-3. You'll beat the Titans, an upset victory, but lose the next 5 weeks. Coming back off the bye, however, you'll beat the Bucs, split the series with the Titans, and lose to the Bengals. I'm giving you the shocker win against the Steelers at home, as Anthony Richardson will be getting the best of Kenny Pickett here, but you'll lose to the Falcons in Atlanta. You'll lose to the Raiders in Vegas, and end off the season losing the Texans in a no-one-cares game, meaning I have the Colts going 4-13, basically the same as last year. Still sticking to the AFC South is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Big expectations for this team. That offense is looking scary, and I'm expecting Trevor Lawrence to put on a masterclass of a year this year with this horrible division. Week 1 versus the Colts, you'll win, lose to the Chiefs, but bounce back, winning your next 6 games, finding yourselves 7-1 at the bye. That 49ers defense will humble you back down, and with that loss, the Titans will take advantage, handing you back-to-back home losses. Standing at 7-3, there's no panic as you cruise past the Texans, but lose to Joe Burrow on primetime, questioning whether or not are the Jags legit. You'll beat the Browns, but lose again to another AFC North team on primetime, questioning again whether or not the Jags are legit. Finally, you'll end the season with 3 straight wins, finding yourselves at 12-5. Next up is the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. The first 3 games of the season you'll be winning, as all of these 3 teams are young and inexperienced. You'll also beat Rodgers and the Jets on prime time because Mahomes is like that, and also beat the Vikings and Broncos, starting off 6-0. However, the minor tweak in the season is losing back-to-back divisional games against the Chargers and Broncos. With that comes week 9 in Germany against Miami, a game that is all for grabs, and Tyreek Hill will be cooking that Chiefs secondary, but Mahomes will clutch up and Tua won't. Just like that, how the game ended in the Super Bowl, you'll get the best of the Eagles here in week 11 following the bye week, win their next 2 games against the Packers and the Raiders, but get upset by Josh Allen and the Bills. You'll beat the Patriots, sweep the Raiders, but Joe Burrow is hunting, and will be hunting you late in the season, week 17, giving you a loss. Finally, you'll finish the year off in a win versus the Chargers, in which I have being the best game of the year, which means I have the Chiefs finishing 13-4 on the season. Another AFC West team, Las Vegas Raiders. Jimmy G does not have a defense to carry him, and also has a running back that hasn't joined training camp yet, so as per usual, it's a mess for the Raiders, and their season hasn't even started. You'll start off losing the first 4 games of the season, but beating Jordan Love and the Packers in week 5. You'll beat the Patriots at home, but lose the next 2 weeks to the Bears and Lions. The Giants are overrated. Devontae will torch, but you'll lose the next 6 weeks. Finally, to end off the season, you'll beat the Colts and lose to the Broncos, ending the year 4-13. Again, sticking to the West Coast, the Chargers are up next, a team with the highest paid quarterback in the league, and I expect Herbert to really step it up this year. Eckler on his contract here, so he's going to be balling. Let's get into it. Week 1 versus the Dolphins, a great matchup at home, which you'll be losing. I believe Mike McDaniels is more prepared than Brandon Staley. The next 3 weeks, you'll win, leading yourselves 3-1 into the bye week. I have the Cowboys upsetting you on prime time, week 6, but you'll upset the Chiefs in week 7, beating the Bears on prime time, but losing to the Jets on prime time. You'll beat the Lions, beat the Packers, beat the Ravens, beat the Patriots, but lose to Russell Wilson and the Broncos in week 14. Vegas won't be an issue for you, and neither will Buffalo, because Herbert is showing up late in the season and also getting his revenge against the Broncos in week 17 before losing to Mahomes and the Chiefs in the last game of the season. Meaning I have the Chargers going 11-6, 1 win upgrade on their last season.
Moving on to the other team in LA, the LA Rams. They lost Jalen Ramsey. Stafford's getting old. Probably one of the worst secondaries in the league.
Let's get to it. First game of the season, you're going to upset the Seahawks, but lose the next 5 straight before beating the Steelers in week 7. The Cowboys will hand you a loss, but you'll beat Jordan Love and the Packers, finding yourselves 3-6 at the bye week. You'll split the season series with Seattle and Arizona, but lose to the Browns and Ravens. Sam Howell won't be able to get it done, so he'll beat the Commanders, manage to beat the Saints, but finish off the year losing to the Giants and 49ers, which means on the year I have the Rams going 6-11. Moving down south to Miami, a fun team with a ton of potential who's going to showcase it in week 1 against the Chargers, beating the Patriots in week 2, but then losing to the Broncos in week 3. They'll show up the Bills in week 4 with a big statement win early on and continue that path of terror, beating the Giants and the Panthers. Week 7 in Philly, where the lights are bright on primetime, Tua will get the best of his former Alabama teammate Jalen Hurts, and the narrative around the league is that the Dolphins are legit. Or are they? Because I have them losing to the Patriots in the divisional battle and to the Chiefs before the bye week, find themselves at 6-3. However, after that bye week, they'll cruise past Vegas, beat the Jets, beat the Commanders, and finish off a 4-game win streak, beating the Titans on prime time. I have them splitting the season series with the Jets in week 15, losing but bouncing back, torching Trayvon Diggs in the Cowboys secondary. I also have them beating Lamar and the Ravens at 1 p.m. in Baltimore. All eyes will be on Miami at this point with massive wins late in the season, but they'll fumble against the Bills in week 18, cementing their season at 12-5. A big improvement from last year because, again, if Tua stays healthy, they are a 10-plus win team easily. Next up is Minnesota, the team that is always a pretender. They lost Dalvin Cook, but I do like their drafty and Jordan Addison. Let's get to it. Week 1, you're beating the Bucs, but losing to Philly in primetime just like last year. Herbert will hand you a loss at home, but you'll bounce back to win against the Panthers. Mahomes will show you up, but 1 p.m. Kirk will handle the Bears. Week 7 comes around, and against the 49ers, mark my words, this game will be an absolute 49ers blowout on prime time and hurt the Vikings for the rest of the season. With that loss, you'll be hurting as you'll also get upset by the Packers the following week. You'll beat the Falcons in Atlanta and the Saints in week 10, but Kirk's primetime struggles will continue as you'll lose to both the Broncos and Bears on prime time, which means entering the bye week, I have the Vikings at 5-7. You'll beat the Raiders following the bye, lose to the Bengals, and split the season series with the Lions and Packers, meaning I have the Vikings going 8-9 on the year. Trust me. Moving back to the AFC side, the New England Patriots, who recently just signed Ezekiel Elliott, I do think they will have a mediocre season considering how hard their division is. And starting off in week 1, you will get pounded by the Eagles. You'll then lose to your division rivals, the Dolphins and Jets, but you'll beat the Cowboys for your first win of the season. At home, 1 p.m., you'll get the job done against the Saints, lose to the Raiders, lose to the Bills, but bounce back with a divisional win of your own against the Dolphins. You'll lose a tough one against Washington, beat the Colts, but lose to the Giants in New York with their franchise being your kryptonite. Herbert will outclass Mac Jones. You'll beat the Steelers, but lose to the Chiefs. But in another primetime game, Bill Belichick will get the best of Sean Payton and bring Boston home a victory. With that big win, that momentum will carry you into beating the Bills in week 17, but Aaron Rodgers is a bad man and will end your season off with a loss, which means I have the Patriots finishing 7-10. 1 win less than last year, but again, this division is very hard. New Orleans, a team that nobody knows how to feel about. Alvin Kamara is missing the first 3 games. Will Derek Carr decide he wants to be good or not this year? We shall see. Week 1, you'll get the best of the Titans and have Saints fans thinking that Derek Carr is going to lead them to an 11-win season, but little do they know he is all over the place. Week 2, you'll get upset by Bryce Young and the Panthers, but bounce back the next week against Jordan Love and the Packers. Again, Derek Carr will show you he's all over the place, losing the Bucs and Patriots. You'll beat the Texans, lose to the Jags, beat the Colts, and manage to squeeze one past Justin Fields and the Bears. 1 p.m. Kirk will stop this win streak, putting you at 5-5. But coming off the bye week, it's going to be sour, losing to both the Falcons and Lions, but beating both the Panthers and Giants. Week 16 comes, and Stafford will outduel Derek Carr. However, you'll end the season off with 2 massive divisional wins, putting yourself at 9-8 and the potential to grab the division. Next up is a Navy New York team, the Giants. Personally, I think the Giants had an overachieving year last year. Daniel Jones isn't a franchise quarterback. They have no wide receiver room. Most of their success was due to their easy schedule. We'll see how Saquon pans out this year. There's already some conflict in the offseason, but let's get to it. The first 4 games of the season, I have you starting off 1-3, with your 1 win being in Arizona. You'll lose the next 2 weeks against Miami and Buffalo, but manage to beat the Commanders. Unfortunately, I have you going on a 4-game losing streak before finally managing to win against the Patriots, which means going into the bye, I have the Giants at 3-9. You'll beat the Packers coming off the bye, but lose the Saints and Eagles. Week 17, you'll beat the Rams, but get swept this year by the Eagles, meaning I have the Giants going 5-12 on the season. Danny Jones finally got himself that contract,
He has less to play for, and I've seen little to no improvements in this team. Moving to the green side of New York, the New York Jets. Obviously, they had a top 5 defense last year and now made incredible additions to their offense, adding Aaron Rodgers, Dalvin Cook, Randall Cobb, Allen Lazard, and on top of that, Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall are going to go insane this year. This team is literally destined for greatness, and it's coached well. I'm telling you, as a 49ers fan, Robert Saleh is amazing. The first 3 games of the season, you'll win, starting off 3-0, but Mahomes and the Chiefs will hand you your first loss on prime time. Robert Saleh's defense will find a way to stump the Broncos, but you'll lose to Philly before the bye week. After the bye week, though, you'll cruise past the Giants, beat Herbert and the Chargers on prime time, and Aaron Rodgers will show up Jimmy G in Vegas. The Bills will split the series with them, and Miami will also hand you back-to-back divisional losses. It's all good, though, as you'll win the next 4 games, splitting the series with Miami, beating the Browns on prime time, and finishing the year off with a win against the Patriots, meaning on the year, I have the New York Jets at a whopping 13-4, taking the league by storm. Sticking to the green theme, the Philadelphia Eagles, a team that I expect to terrorize the NFC the next 5 years, just off going 6-0 before getting your first loss to 2 of the Dolphins. That loss will be sour, as your division rivals, the Commanders, will hand you another loss, but you'll get a divisional win beating the Cowboys. Following the bye week, the Chiefs will repeat what happened in the Super Bowl and beat you again, but you'll bounce back in a tight win against Josh Allen and the Bills. You'll also get the best of the 49ers again at home in one of the best games of the season, but that home advantage will do justice. You're sweeping the Cowboys, stopping the Seahawks, sweeping the Giants, and ending the year going an outstanding 15-2. Taking in Pennsylvania, the Pittsburgh Steelers are up next, an above-average defense, weapons, and offense, but the only thing holding them back right now is the development of Kenny Pickett. Week 1, I have you losing at home to the Niners, and in Week 2, I have you losing as well to Deshaun and the Browns, but I have you beating the Raiders and beating the Texans, go 2-2. You'll lose another divisional game, this time against the Ravens. Unfortunately, after the bye week, I also have you losing the next 3 games, but getting the job done against Jordan Love and the Packers, which will give you the momentum to beat the Browns in Week 11, but you won't win back-to-back divisional games, losing the Bengals in Week 12. The next 4 games, you'll go 2-2, beat the Seahawks after a big win against the Bengals, but lose to the Ravens in the final game of the season, meaning I have the Steelers going 7-10 on the year, as they do have a very, very hard division, and I expect the Browns to be better than them this year. Next up is Purdy and the 49ers. For me, there's only really 2 teams in the NFC, the Eagles and the Niners. They're the only teams in contention of this conference, so I expect the 49ers to have a great season, starting off 5-0, but losing to the Browns away to give the 49ers the first loss of the season. That will be a tough one, as the 49ers will take 2 massive wins against the Vikings and the Bengals heading into the bye week. After the bye week, they'll win the next 3 games before heading to Philly in the most anticipated matchup all year. Philly will get the best of them, and they'll lose the Seahawks the next week following that tough Philly loss. However, I have them winning out the rest of the season and completing their season at 14-3. Sticking to the NFC West, the Seattle Seahawks are up next, a team that exceeded expectations last year and is looking to challenge that division. I have Seattle starting 1-1, beating Carolina in Week 3, and before the bye, going 3-1. The Bengals will give it to you, but I have you winning back-to-back games against Arizona and Cleveland. Lamar will put that streak to stop, and Washington's defense will show you up, leading you to a must-win game against the Rams, in which you do so. The 49ers defense will get the best of you on prime time, and so will Dallas. However, you'll get a massive win against the 49ers, giving you momentum heading into Philly week, but they will hand you a loss. The last 3 games this season have you going 2-1, beating the Titans and Cardinals, meaning overall, I have the Seahawks going 9-8, the same exact as last year. The Brady-less Bucks are up next, and my lord, this is going to be a very messy season for the Bucks. I'm putting the Bucks at their floor, which is 2-15. I would say their ceiling is 4 games. Tennessee, an interesting team, signing DeAndre Hopkins, but their quarterback situation will always be a question mark. Now, based off of schedule, I actually have you losing your first 6 games, going 0-6. I think the Saints will upset you in Week 1, lose a close game to both the Chargers and Browns, and the Bengals will force you to 0-4. At this point, all the momentum into the season is lost, and Anthony Richardson will take advantage of this and beat you as well. So will Lamar. But I do have you coming off the bye week, regrouped, beating the Falcons, beating the Steelers, the Bucks, the Jags, and the Colts in the biggest turnaround in the NFL season. I do have Miami putting that streak to an end, and I have you going 2-2 on your last 4 games of the year, sweeping the Texans to finish off the year at 8-9. Last but not least, to end the season predictions video is the Washington Commanders. A good defense, plenty of weapons on offense, but again, a massive question mark at quarterback. I actually do really like this team, but we are just not sure of Sam Howell. He's looking good in preseason, but I have you starting off 1-0, losing your next 3 games as you're facing a tough schedule with the Broncos, Bills, and Philadelphia Eagles. I do also have you losing in prime time to the Bears, but beating the Falcons the following week. You lose to the Giants in New York, but surprisingly upset the Eagles at home. You'll beat Bill and the Pats and win your next 2 games against the Seahawks and Giants. But following the bye week, it doesn't look good as the Rams, Jets, 49ers, and Cowboys will all beat you here. So I have the Commanders going 6-11 on the year. A late season slump will not do them justice. And 6-11 doesn't represent well in what I think this team can do. But based off of schedule, they're starting hard, they're ending hard, and the unknowingness of Sam Howell, 6-11 it is. Which means for the playoffs, I have the Bengals, Chiefs, Jets, and Jags all winning the division. Dolphins, Ravens, and Chargers getting the wild card spot. The Broncos, Bills, and Browns all missing the playoffs. The reason that the Chargers get over the Broncos in the playoffs is because they have the same divisional record, but the Chargers would have more AFC wins rather than the Broncos, which means they get in over that tiebreaker. The Bills will miss the playoffs in this video. It's just a freaking hard conference, and I don't think they'll get it done this year. The Jets have improved. The Jags have improved. The Dolphins have improved. The Ravens have improved. It's going to be very hard. For the NFC, I have the Eagles, Niners, Bears, Falcons all winning the division. Cowboys, Seahawks, and Saints making the playoffs just barely. Again, I just want to reiterate that these predictions are most likely not entirely going to happen. You just can't predict an NFL season 18 weeks prior. Injuries happen. It is the most up and down league ever. So these are just my initial thoughts, what I think is going to happen. And yeah,